It was a close relationship that dated back centuries, but in 2013, it took a turn for the worse. That year, Egypt saw its first democratically elected president overthrown in a coup. Turkey, which was a strong supporter of Egypt's fledgling government and its president Mohamed Morsi, condemned the military takeover. Since then, mistrust between Ankara and Cairo has only grown, from taking opposing sides in the conflict in Libya to competition for vast energy reserves in the eastern Mediterranean. How this relationship fares will be crucial in determining the future of the region. Let's take a look at this report. And joining me now from Doha, Omar Ashour, who is the founding chair of the Security Studies program at Doha Institute for Graduate Studies, and Murat Aslan, who is an assistant professor at Hasan Kalyoncu University. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. So, Murat, is there an imminent risk of a military escalation between Egypt and Turkey-backed GNA forces?
If you review the latest developments in Libya, I think, yes, it's probable. Because we see that Sisi is very eager to have Haftar to reign at the east of Libya for various reasons. And also GNA is very keen to reach to the Egyptian border to have a united Libya. Once they don't agree, compromise, that means there will be a confrontation and we should expect it. But the issue is to what extent they can further their aim and a probable military intervention in terms of sustainability and also future scenarios, not only in Libya, but also in Egypt and Eastern Mediterranean Sea.
All right. Sisi actually has recently got together with the tribal leaders and he explained and spoke about his country's red lines. Let's listen to what he had to say.
The red lines that we have announced are primarily a call for peace and to end the conflict in Libya. But we will not stand idle in the face of any moves that pose a direct threat to the national strategic security on our western borders, especially during increased military mobilization around the city of Sirte.
So, Omar, why all of a sudden Sirte has become Egypt's red line? Because we know it's 800 kilometers away from the Egyptian border. What's at stake for Cairo?
It's really perplexing in so many ways. I think the best way to explain it is to see how it's the regime's interest, ruling regime in Cairo's interest versus the national interest of Egypt. On one end, as you said, it's about over 900 kilometers away from Saloum, between Saloum and Sirte. From Saloum to the other end of Egypt, Rafah in Sinai, northeast Sinai, where he pretty much lost control against a group of insurgents, which are outnumbered completely 100 to 1. From Saloum to Rafah, it's less than 900 kilometers. Saddam Hussein, when he tried to take Kuwait, only 200 kilometers, the whole length of it, there was a whole international coalition against him. So now he's trying, what Sisi is trying to do is to take 5 times what Saddam tried to do in 1991. Similar reasons. There is the oil wealth in Ras Lanuf and others. But Saddam actually had some capacity to do it because back then he had like one of the fourth largest army in the world, and it had some experience in fighting. I don't see, that posturing. There's an escalation in the rhetoric. He chose a group of, I would say, loyalists. Nobody recognized them as, full tribal leaders. They're mainly clan leaders, leaders of some of the families and some of the clans within larger tribes. Most of the members of these tribes are fighting on the other side in Tripoli, and many of them denounce them. So he's trying to form a group of basically loyalists to the regime, not even to the Egyptian, national interest, but to the regime in Cairo.
Yes.
With a vast extension all the way to Sirte, which is, if this is not going to end into a tragedy, it will be laughable.
So, Murat,
but it's actually a reality on the ground.
Yes. So, Murat, is the Egyptian army a match for the Turkish forces? And do you see, are there any political obstacles before an all-out operation by Egypt?
In such cases, there must be a balance between conventionality and unconventionality. The traditional and conventional forces like Egyptian army are usually short of engaging with irregularities in such cases. So if Egyptian army enters to the Libyan territory and holds a portion of it, that means this army must be prepared for a long-term struggle and also, a kind of conflict of new type. Up until now, Western states, Russia or other Arabic states, preferred a kind of proxy war, either in Syria or in Libya. So Egyptian intervention means proxy war will be surpassed and we will have a regular army struggling with deficits.
So, Omar, how does it fit in international law for a so-called Eastern Parliament calling for a direct foreign intervention to oust an internationally recognized government? And also, we also know that Sisi and Macron, in their latest phone call, have reportedly agreed on stopping all illegal interventions in Libya. What's your take on that?
I think the tenure of that parliament expired a while ago, a lot of years ago actually. It's not exactly the parliament; it's a group of loyalist MPs whose legitimacy expired a few years ago, and they're basically calling for a direct foreign intervention, which I agree with Murat. It will involve some conventionality. The problem is Egypt's record in both conventional warfare and counterinsurgency warfare is mediocre. Egypt did not win one war in the last century till now. So since the campaign against Sudan in 1899, which was led by the Brits basically, and involved some Egyptian soldiers, that's the last one they won. They won against the Mahdist movements, who were basically fighting with swords and bows. From 1948 to 56 to 67 to 73 to 91 against the Iraqis, the Americans won the war, but the battles fought by Egypt, they reflected very, very limited capacities in terms of conventional warfare.
All right. I have to interrupt you here because I'm running out of time. I want to ask this to Murat. How could tensions between Turkey and Egypt affect both countries' ties with the United States?
I think the U.S. attitude is decisive in Libya's case. Up until now, the U.S. strategy was active neutrality. That means they were just observing and acting pending to the developments. And they preferred a kind of balance between legitimacy and illegitimacy. What I mean is that they consulted with Tripoli, and at the meantime, they sent another delegation to Haftar. But starting from the last week, the U.S. attitude has been changing.
Yes.
What I mean is that they are more or less together with Tripoli rather than Haftar. And this is a challenge for Egyptian intervention, because Egyptian intervention will be a clear challenge to the United States, along with Russian presence, because Egypt will also legitimize Russian bases at the east of Libya. So I don't think that the United States will favor such an intervention, that Russia will be involved.
Okay. So, Omar, would Egypt favor a divided Libya?
Yes, that's unfortunately the case. Well, I wouldn't say Egypt. I would say mainly the Sisi regime, because it's unaccountable to the rest of Egypt. But in this case, they would prefer a divided Libya, an eastern Libya, where they can install somebody like the Sisi regime, so Haftar, a military dictatorship, basically, that can more or less provide them with, some of the prevent first a democratic Libya from being successful. Mm-hmm. But also try to manipulate a bit the oil wealth in Ras Lanuf and the areas around it, and basically the oil crescent areas, and keep a buffer from any, let's say, freedom and democracy that will develop in the West, if it ever develops. But obviously there are competitors. If you try to do that, we have Russia on the ground, who will basically be the main player given the different sizes. But also you have the UAE, which also would like to see a major cut, and it's the main. Basically, it will be between the UAE, the money, and Russia, the conventional hybrid power, international power.
Yes.
So this may not even work for him. Like it's perplexing again, because if you saw, the maritime boundary treaty between Turkey and Libya, the Egyptian national interest actually lie there, because it will give them more boundaries, extended boundaries in the Mediterranean. So oil wealth, and the Sukhairat agreement, again backed by Turkey and backed by the UN, will de-escalate the situation in Libya. It may end up in a democratic Libya, which is not so good for the Sisi regime. But again, the national interest overall on the long term is with a secure, de-escalated, free Libya, with a big chunk of a larger portion of the Eastern Mediterranean wealth going to Egypt.
All right.
But that's not the regime's interest. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Sorry. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk.